Hello, Money Queens and listeners. Welcome to Women Behind the Millions. Let's meet the women behind the millionaires, the women supporting, guiding, celebrating women with their wealth. You will hear from women millionaires, how they got there, what they wish they had known, what got them to be a millionaire, the emotional side, the spiritual side, the practical side of wealth. You'll also get to meet the women behind the scenes helping make it happen. Let's dive into Women Behind the Millions. I am Jessica Weaver, your host, best-selling author of 3 books, wealth advisor, and founder of the Women's Wealth Boutique. Let's start meeting the women. Hello, Money Queens. Welcome to Women Behind the Millions. I am Jessica Weaver, wealth advisor, best-selling author, and founder of the Women's Wealth Boutique. And we have a very exciting show for you today because I'm sure each and every one of you have at one point in your life, thought about writing a book. And that might sound scary. It might sound overwhelming, hopefully exciting too. So we are going to make your dreams come true. We have the amazing, very talented Hilary Jastram with us today. She is from Minnesota, a writer, author, a diehard word nerd. She's a founder of Bookmark Publishing House, which specializes in premier book editing, publishing for Fortune 500 brands, and the 1% superstar entrepreneurs. Bookmark was born out of the necessity when the inquiries she put out to help authors publish their masterpieces gained a ton of traction. Now it demands most of her time, and she loves every single bit of it. She also hosts the Right Effing Now podcast. I love that name because how many times are like, I need to get this book out. I need to write this down. Just do it. Just do it, ladies. Helps you master writing, marketing, publishing. I've been on her podcast. It's a great podcast, so please tune in to it. And she is a dog and cat mom with 3 grown kids, one handsome, hilarious husband. Oh, as you can tell, she has a way with words. Thank you so much, Hilary, for being on here with us for the Women Behind the Millions.
Oh my goodness, it is my honor. Thank you. I just adore you. We have such a history together, so I'm just honored to be here.
You feel like a friend that I've known my entire life, and even though we speak throughout the year, we just pick up right where we left off. And you've been a part of every one of my book processes. I mean, if you can see your video, if you're watching on YouTube, on our blog, you can see all of my books. You've been a huge part of my book journey, and that's why we knew we had to get you on here.
Well, I'm telling you what, though, you are the ideal author. In fact,
what goes into becoming an ideal author? What does that mean?
It's accountability. It really is accountability. It's ownership. Sure. And it's I think it's embracing every part of the process. It's not just the fun stuff. It's also like, I know I'm going to have to do this. It's being open to learning what you don't know, which I think is a superpower in anybody's life, really. So
great point.
You get your stuff done. And sometimes authors, they'll just kind of back away slowly. They don't want it, and they don't want to deal with it. But not you. You were like, nope, we're going to go forward. You never missed a deadline, nothing. So.
Yeah. So when you think about there's the blocks, the creative flow blocks, all of a sudden you just do not know how to end the book. I remember that with my first book. Like, how the heck do you end a book? Yes. It was so overwhelming. Or when I would get the book notes back and I'm like, oh, and I have to reread what you wrote over and over again. There are some pieces that they're not my favorite. I'm going to admit, not my favorite.
I think it's safe to say it's nobody's favorite. Nobody wants their stuff back where, especially, you feel so good about it. You know, you're like, I did it. This is so great. And then your editor has the nerve to send it back to you and it's all marked up and you're like, oh boy. But the best thing to do is to just go with the flow, go with the journey, go with what you need to learn. And there's a reason, there should be a reason for every edit. So there's none of these arbitrary edits that are like, I just want you to change this because.
You're not just messing with us.
Not often. No, I'm kidding. No, I think people need to understand that. Like there's always a reason for it. You know, it's not to, and the product at the end, that's the focus. The focus has to be, what are we collaborate, the collaborative process, and like, what are we reaching toward? It's the product. It's like any piece of marketing. And I know that doesn't sound very glamorous or like swoony or any of those things that we romanticize writing books, and we should. But as your editor, as your publisher, that's not my job. My job is not to romanticize. My job is to be pragmatic and say this works and this doesn't, because we are collectively here for the good of the products.
I love that you said go with the flow with it, because I think so many times we have this certain way it has to be in our mind. And then when you get an outsider's perspective, well, this is how it's going to appeal to more people, or this is how it's going to resonate with more people, or maybe we need more of this story here and there. And to be able to take in that very productive criticism or feedback is very important, because how many books do you think you've read over the years?
Holy moly.
How many do you think you're at right now?
I mean, I've got to be 1,000.
1,000 books in. Easily, I would say easily 1,000 books in.
Maybe 5,000. I don't know. Like, I can't even, I read hundreds a year now. So, I mean, it's got to be maybe 10,000. I don't know. It's a lot, because I've always been a reader too.
So even outside of work, you were reading all along. And I do want to go into, your past, growing up, everything. But just for this note, I would bet that when you see a book, you can tell right away how it's going to land with the readers.
It's not, well, first of all, I mean, everybody says don't judge a book by its cover, but that is what we all do, right? We all do that. We pick it up and we go, what in the heck was this vision about, right? But so there's that piece of it. But this pretty quickly, when I get into the book, I can see if work has been done for the reader. So where people go wrong, or they kind of go off the path, is they're like, I'm going to write a book and it's going to be for me. Right. And when we do that, then the reader knows it immediately. And the reader says, hey, you know what? I know you didn't write this book for me. You wrote it for you. So what is it? What's in it for me? If it's fiction, I'm going to take you on a journey, right? I'm going to abduct you out of your reality. If it's nonfiction, I'm going to teach you something. I'm going to help you improve your life, or something like that.
That value that getting back from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And how are we presenting that? Right. I tell people that you want to punch them in the face when they open the book and they're like, whoa, right? They're immediately captivated. You know that.
Yes. I hear it's so similar with social media. And I hear my one PR woman, she goes, you need a gut punch every once in a while. You're like, you're too nice, or it's too nice, it's too fluffy. It's like, you need to get in there with that meat. And I tell our advisors at the Women's Wealth Boutique too, I'm like, every once in a while, you need that gut punch to like wake the people up and say, I do need your help. Yeah. I am hooked onto this concept. And the idea of how much work the author has done for their readers, I never thought of that concept, but it's like marketing 101 when you think about it, right? How am I going to appeal to the readers? Same thing with social media messaging, right? How are we going to get the readers engaged? What's the value, exchange of value we're giving?
Yes. And we get a little lazy. I think social media kind of makes us lazy a little bit. It makes it really convenient to just hit that like button or some kind of emoji or whatever. And then we think about like, oh, I only had to do this little bit, and so responded this way or whatever. And it's not the case. I want us to keep working. I want us to keep kind of, plumbing the depths of our minds and presenting what we have. I want us to keep trying. This is an art. Book writing is an art. Writing is an art. We should always be seeking to elevate it. And so the reader has that experience.
What a great perspective. Yes, elevating it each time. I always felt selfish writing my books, because it's something that I really wanted to do. And it's silly, because the point of the books was to help other women and to get the message out to more women. But I felt, and I think this is the industry's issue, I always felt it was taking away time from my clients, because right away they go, well, how many hours a week are you doing this? What hours during business hours are you doing this? So I felt bad I was taken away from my clients. But then when I look back, each book forced me to become a better advisor because I had to find new strategies, new ways of running money, or more ways to resonate with the audience around money. Look back, it made me a better advisor each time.
Yeah.
It's kind of silly to feel guilty over that.
Well, you're going to, I think the thing is not to chastise our feelings, but to acknowledge them and then move on from them. We can say, well, I feel this way, or I shouldn't be feeling, so much. I don't want to say so much joy or pleasure from writing your book, but it feels like sometimes we get off kilter a little bit. You were allowed to feel joy. You were allowed to feel all the things that you're going to feel when it comes to writing your book. The main thing is to come back to that I'm writing it for the reader, right? So you can feel all those things and you get to feel that joy and like, I wrote this and it feels so good. You get to revel in that. It's almost like when we do a pay it forward line,
Sure.
and we feel like this feels so good that is that the reason I'm doing it, right? But we still get to exist and we still get to say, in that kind of like balancing act of it is, I do it for me and I do it for you. We want to put the reader first. I do it for the reader. And as a side result of that, then I also get to feel pretty amazing about what I've done.
Yes. You can see how this would apply to so many, right? It's taking time away from my kids. It's taking time away from my spouse to write this book or from doing X, Y, and Z. Very true. But when you think of it, doing it for the reader, there's so much more of an impact. It kind of lights a fire under your ass too.
It does.
Right? There's a bigger message out there than me just sitting in my office and avoiding people to write. No, there's a purpose behind it.
Well, there is a little truth behind it. And all those truths are okay too. That's a huge part of what I help people with is mindset. And women particularly are very good at guilting themselves and they're very good, I should be doing this, I'm not doing enough. And is it bad that I feel good that I can get away from my kids for a minute and have a moment of sanity? No, you're human. All of this is human. So let's just acknowledge it and let's stay focused. It's like when my kids were little, I have old kids now. When they were little, they would say, I don't want to do the dishes. And I would say, well, that's great, but that doesn't matter because they still have to get done. So we got to focus on the end task here and keep moving forward. And that's helpful, I think, because it gives you permission to feel those feelings and not belabor feeling them. Why am I feeling them? Should I be feeling them? Just feeling them. You're a human. Be kind and compassionate to yourself through the process. And just always.
Yes. And if you avoid your feelings, I'm guessing you probably will start to avoid the task, procrastinate, instead of just letting them move through you and then you get to move on.
Right. And and it's kind of like if you're I don't like the D word diet. If you're on a nutritional shift in your life,
Well, the shift, good health.
shift, right? And then you screw up and you have, a bunch of snack size,
Cheat day.
and then I'm not looking at anybody. I'm just saying that can happen. And we're not going to sit there and go, oh, I did it. This is terrible. I can't move on and just browbeat ourselves. We have to just acknowledge it. This happened. What am I doing next? It's the same thing. It's the same thing with anything, with procrastination. And I talk to readers about, or authors rather, why are you procrastinating? What's going on? We had this goal. It wasn't met. What's going on? A lot of times that is imposter syndrome.
Sure.
And so we talk about those things. Sometimes that procrastination has nothing to do with, I don't know if I would say not wanting to do it, but there are deeper reasons. You might feel like, I don't deserve to do it. And that kind of mutates into, well, I think it feels like I don't want to do it. But at the heart of it is that you don't even think you deserve it.
I have to say, I felt all of those things that you just said: the imposter syndrome, the I don't deserve to do this. Why me? I can't do this. Who am I to write a book? I think women, especially you're talking about women behind the millions, even our clients who have, millions, multi-millions of dollars, they don't feel like a millionaire. It's almost like they're still questioning it and they're holding on to it so tight. So I can see now you're writing a book, which, right, it's a legacy piece. It's like, well, who am I to have this legacy piece? It's amazing that you're able to now coach them through that instead of it being this upper barrier, this block. Now they can push through it. I want to switch gears here, Hilary. I want to learn about how did you get into this? Did you wake up one day and say, I'm going to help people write books? I'm going to be the editor. What happened growing up? When did this all start?
Oh my goodness. I was your typical book nerd growing up. My mom would take us to the library and she didn't drive. So we walked like the 6 blocks it was or whatever. Now I know if I lived 6 blocks from a library, that would be like heaven. So if we lived so close, and then we'd come home with just stacks and stacks of books. And she was like, go ahead, get as many as you want. And
That's amazing.
yeah,
She encouraged that.
oh, she was incredible.
So she was a book nerd as well. Was the whole family, or is it something that you bonded over?
Yeah, I would say the whole family was a book nerd. My grandpa was a book nerd. And so he had these bookshelves by his chair. When you'd walk in, you'd see these bookshelves. And he had like Clan of the Cave Bear, all of those books. He had some Stephen King books in there, stuff like that. So we would always go up to the cabin every year. And one year, and I must have been like, I don't know, 10 years old or whatever, he was reading Stephen King's It. And that is an immensely fat book. That is just, and I said, Grandpa, what are you doing? Can I read that book when you're done? And he said, you sure can, kiddo. Even at the tender age of 10. And he was like,
That's an intense, aggressive book.
it is a very intense, aggressive book. But the whole point was that let's support these children. It wasn't just me, these children who are hungry for knowledge and they want to know more. And I fell into these worlds like Clan of the Cave Bear, those books. I could not get enough of those. I vacuumed up the whole series, and
it's almost like a mini vacation for yourself, right? You're entering this new world, this new history period of time.
yes.
It's almost like you're putting your mind on vacation and you're just consumed in this new world.
Yes. And so it started as like a joyful reason for a vacation, but then my childhood took some kind of twists and turns, and we lost a house, and there was a divorce, and there was poverty and things of that nature. And then when I was older, then bullying in high school, and
That is a lot. That's a lot of trauma for a young girl, for you, for your family. And how many siblings did you have?
2 at the time. So my older sister and I are 22 months apart. So she was but we were like teenagers when everything started to go down in flames. And
So you're old enough to be aware of what's going on.
yeah, but not, when you're not happy as a teenager,
That's a tough, yes.
tough. And you know that as a mom, because you can see more insight into yourself when you were younger. Even as your children grow, you can go back into your own childhood and you can say, wow, that makes sense that I did that, and I don't ever use excuses. I'm never like, well, that happened and I had to do it, but I can say that made sense. I had looked information or, and so, I mean, all of my whole life is all about forgiveness, love, and compassion. I'm not even kidding you. Like, I don't do
We don't live.
anything else. So, but the books were always an escape. I got into theater. I got into doing some of that sort of writing. I tried to, I wrote books, mostly fiction when I was in high school. And I always wanted something to do with books. I didn't know what it was going to be. And then I got married, and then I had kids, and then I worked in a public accounting firm for a while, and I worked, I did a lot.
Very different space than where you are now. Like,
Very different space. And that was back when you had to wear like hose, you had to wear like nylons to work. And I would be like, why am I torturing myself every day?
that reminds me of the Spanx book. The story of Spanx and the hosiery the whole hosiery industry, I should say, and the change of that. Okay. So you're working, how long did you work in the accounting firm for?
It was like 2 years. And then but it's really funny, Jess, because when I worked there, I had my core job responsibilities, but I loved writing so much that I was soon heading up the newsletter team or the newsletter team, the local office. Then I got into like the national office. I started doing everything in writing that I possibly could outside
At an accounting firm.
yes, they were like, "Are you still gonna fax this for me or make this copy?" And I'm like, "I'll fit it in, okay." And it just kept going from there. So,
Very cool.
I went back to school, majoring in marketing and advertising, which has greatly helped with the positioning of the books.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's I have to tell you, I'm going to tell you a little secret now. And this is something that I hope never gets out, but I'm going to put it out there. I never graduated from college. I never did. I got 1 year away. 1 year. So
1 year that close.
I was that close. I had a cumulative 3.9 GPA and I was just kicking butt. And then I had to have massive knee surgery. And after that, they said, "You've taken out too much in student loans. You can't come back." So I took what I had learned. I had already done my English. I'd already done my core, whatever. So I mainly had like interning left to do or whatever. So I took what I've done and I went out and worked at a marketing firm for a while. And then I worked at a large regional furniture company doing their marketing.
Okay.
It was like 10 minutes from my house and I could take the back roads and I could have coffee and listen to music.
How old were your kids at this point?
Oh, they were like teenagers,
Okay.
tweens and teens. And so everything's going along just fine. And that's when I got sick. And I just was like, what? I did it right. I finally did it right. I didn't march into a decision without thinking about it. I actually went back to school. I did it right. I sought out this job. I fought for a good salary. I fought for good core job responsibilities. And then I got sick and now we know it's MS. So, I've been in business now for 7.5 years. We started as a marketing firm and then the books found me. So I did everything I possibly could to work, right?
And we're here. It's happened. We have our own women-only financial firm. So grateful to be here. So grateful that we made it through this journey, and I'm so grateful for you. Cannot wait to explode this, build this out for women financial advisors everywhere, women investors, women who want to get engaged with their money, who want to become money queens. We are here for you. This is all for you. This is our safe place, our own financial firm made by women for women. This is for you. So grateful for you. Thank you for being on this journey with me, with all of our women advisors who are coming on board. Your trust is everything to us, and we just send you so much love and kindness and support. And we are here to do whatever needs to be done to help you explode your growth. Do what we can to get you moving in the right direction as well.
And you're at that point where I'll take anything that's going to put money in my bank account, food on the table, help anybody. It's interesting when you fell into books and right at the same time what was happening in the self-publishing space for books.
Oh, that's all God.
And that was very, right, that alignment and catching, we thought, right, that marketing wave.
Oh my goodness. I couldn't have planned it any better. I mean, coming into this. So, I started as there was no we back then. I started as
yes, you're HR, you're the marketing, you're the editor, you're the operations manager, payroll.
It was all of it. It was like, hello, this is the accounting firm. Yes. So, So yes, and to your point, it was anything to put food on the table because all of a sudden we lost that income. And it was a really amicable parting with this company. They saw me get sick before their very eyes. I couldn't walk down the hallway without holding on to the wall.
Oh, Hilary, I must have been horrible. Like you said, you had all this momentum building. I want to point this out. There's so many times in our careers where we have this amazing momentum building and then your health hits or COVID forces you to shut down, right? And you're like, why now? But clearly that was not what God had in mind for you.
No.
That was building you for that spot, but it wasn't that direction.
It was not. And he was holding a spot for me. He said, listen, I've been trying to tell you for a long time, this is your direction. And I did not listen. I did not listen because I let my fear answer for me. So I would just say, no, I'm not. I need a full-time job and I need benefits and I need all these things, right? And we get really dramatic when we look at our lives, right?
We rationalize it. And I was to say leaving my father's firm, right? These are all the reasons I should stay. They well outweigh that one reason to leave and create something special.
Yes. And we get knocked down. We think that's our story. We go, well, this is my story and this is how it's supposed to end because I said it. But we deny ourselves these opportunities for learning and discovery, and I've gone through this so many times with the MS and exacerbations and up and down and all those things. And each time I just have to ask myself, what am I supposed to do with this? Not why is it happening to me? Because it can happen to anybody. And honestly, if I had all my problems to choose again, I would choose MS over a spouse dying from cancer. I would choose MS over my home burning to the ground, with precious people and, all of that, right? We choose the devil that we know. And we know that. But so there wasn't any time to think about it and even, kind of assimilate what's going on here. There was no time. There was only time to make money. So I just was like, I got to make money. And it's through those connections. One of my clients had written a book. He had self-published and he had written multiple books. And I looked at his books and I said, and because by this time I had written one book. So I had written a novel by this time in, I think it was 2004 in college.
Oh, wow. Okay. You've written in college.
Long time ago. And my English professor took us on a field trip. And he said, I want you to pick a person here in the Crystal Court in Minneapolis and write about them. You're going to write one chapter. And I wrote about the grayest man I could find. He had a gray suit. He had like a gray pallor. He had like a gray pants, like gray hair. He just was gray, right? And I don't know why I zoned in on him, but I made him a serial killer. And so I wrote that chapter and he said, keep going. And I did. I finished the book.
Your professor needed to know what was going to happen.
He did. This is before, investigation discovery and behind the scenes and all of those things. And the book was about the serial killer's wife and like, why did she pick him? And how could she pick him? And how could she trust him? Last in a relationship, right? That was out. And it was loosely based on kind of exercising some of the demons in my life of the people that I don't know any serial killers, but I do know some very, narcissistic, malignant people. And so you get that out. You got to get it out somehow, right?
So that was your release. That's fascinating. And it's crazy because we started this conversation about Stephen King. Here you are. Right. It's valid.
Yeah.
Bringing your life into it. And
you do. Yeah. That first book, they say the first book is really about you. It tells you a lot about yourself. So if you think about your first book, and everything that you're sharing, and I think of your first book and I'm like, oh my goodness, you didn't have children then.
No. Yes. Felt like a baby at that point. And some of our advisors say they like to read my books in sequence. The changes in the evolution Jazz, even the covers, the covers. And I think that's such a cool part about books is it's documenting where you are at that time in your life, what you're talking about, what you're teaching, if it's a how-to book, educating, what you're experiencing, the stories around you. It's almost like this time capsule. And I never thought about it until we have this conversation. And it's very cool to document that.
Yeah, you have it all. You have it all documented. I mean, it's crazy because you can see the succession. You can see, decisions you make. Like I remember you talking about your dog in your book.
And we're big animal fans. Yes, our Dookie, who he was mini dots, is 8 pounds, and he broke our hearts because he had back issues twice. So we had to put him down. But we're getting off that. But I do want to go back to your book. So what got you into the books? This gentleman, he needed your marketing help with his previous book or his current book?
Well, I read his books and I want to redo them for you. And he said, excuse me, he said, okay. And when I wrote my first book, I had studied for a year with a New York Times bestselling editor. And I had just paid money out of my own pocket because, and I took an intermediate fiction class, and I even did a little a book reading at this class at the Loft in downtown Minneapolis, which is a big hub for creative people, right? And writing. It's an incredible place. Incredible. So I had this training under my belt, and I had helped some of my friends, not for any money, to some of my friends would be like, hey, I'm going to send you my book. Can you read it? Can you give me some feedback on it? So I was slowly getting into that world. And this editor I worked with said, you could do this. And I thought, no, I cannot. No, you can do. I can't do that.
Take the compliment, Hilary.
I know. I'm working on it. I'm a deflector, right? A lot of women are going to be like, yes, that's me. I'm a deflector. We're not comfortable, receiving compliments about ourselves. So, excuse me, I have these Minnesota allergies. So, in any regard, I approached this gentleman and I said, I want to redo your books. And he said, yep, okay. And I had done a little bit of work for him before. I had done like a press release for him and stuff like that. And by the way, people don't ask me to do that, okay? Because I don't anymore.
Not part of the services. Yeah. Your focus is all on the books now. What is your process? I want to get into how people work with you. And let's say the listeners, Money Queens listening right now, they have an idea or they have a book. A lot of times, and I'm sure when people find out what you do, they go, I have a book in me. I need to write a book. Everybody has a book inside of them, or maybe it's even written. What do they engage you? What is the process like with you? This is a pretty loaded question, right? How involved are you with the process? I'd love to go into that now.
Well, most authors that come to me have not written a word. They come to me and we start working together when they have an idea.
Is it better to come to you with just an idea versus having something pretty written and established?
Sometimes, yes. And especially if you don't have an outline. If you don't have an outline, we stop whatever we're doing, wherever you are in the stage, we stop that because we have to know where we're going. We have to have some defining strategy or blueprint. So many people will sit down and they'll go, I sat down and I wrote today and it was so great and I feel so good. And I'm like, okay, but where are you going? Why did you make that decision? Does it make sense for what you're about to do over here? Mm-hmm. It's critically important that we do those things. So
that's a
that's where we start. We will go right back there. I'm not going to take something that doesn't have a strategy behind it, especially if it's a nonfiction. If somebody's like, I wrote this book here and I don't really know, I just got to put it out for my company. I'm like, well, hey, that's great. But you wouldn't do that in any other piece of marketing, would you, for your company?
No, as you said, there's got to be a direction, right? Even for us with managing money, there needs to be a direction. We're just not saving and investing to save and invest. There's a point to it.
Right.
Process behind it. It makes sense that a book should be, but you're guiding a reader along the path.
Yes. And if it's so, think about your book too. If it's nonfiction, it's based, and geared towards your company. This book is the longest and most intricate marketing piece you will have.
Sure.
So that's how we have to approach it. We have to chop it up into little pieces, and we have to say this piece leads into this piece, to this piece, to this piece. And it has to make sense. At the same time, it can't be everything is relatable, because some people go, I'm going to transition into this and this and this and this and this. And you go, but it doesn't relate. We can make anything relate. It has to make sense. So people come to me with an idea. We flesh out the idea. I do everything I possibly can to create a no pressure environment.
Mm-hmm.
Usually stop ourselves before we get started if we put on too much pressure, and they'll be like, I'm not sure when that took place. I don't know if it was 1987 or 1988. I'm like, listen, that doesn't matter right now. What matters is, to go back to what you were talking about earlier, is flow, right? Get it out. You want to purge that book from your system. And then we're going to go in and we're going to move those pieces around. Everything can always be moved around. We have all the time in the world to edit. You are not going to take the first result that comes out of you and put that for sale, right? It is not going to be in the marketplace. We're going to go through it numerous times until you feel thrilled, not good, thrilled. I can put my stamp on this. I want to talk about it. It's awesome. Then we know that we've done a good job.
There's so much that I want to tap into from what you just said. When you're going to talking about the purpose of it, and I know you're starting to work with my cousin who's a disabled veteran, and he was so excited. He wants to get this book out, and he messaged me right before your meeting. He goes, what should I do to prepare for this meeting? And I said, what's the purpose? What do you want to get out of having this book? Because as you said, it's the biggest marketing piece that you, and the most time invested marketing piece that you will put into. What do you want to happen from the book? What do you want this book to launch you into? Is it speaking? Is it selling courses? Is it to build credibility, get more clients? What is the purpose? What is it leading for you? And I was just interviewed on another podcast, Retirement Inside Out. We didn't talk one bit about retirement, Hilary. We're just talking about books and and branding. And to me, a book is a way for people to spend hours with me, but on their terms and on their time. So they could be in their pajamas, cozied up by a fire on the beach with their kids running around them, drinking a glass of wine. It's completely on their own term, on their own time, how they want to do it. And it's also a leverage play, because now I get to be with thousands of women at once. This is going to sound raunchy. Thousands of women at once without it taking any more of my time up. Ideal situation. Okay, so thank you for tapping into that, because that is a huge piece of, especially for these women who are listening, they all have a powerful story behind their transformation, their journey. Let's talk about legacy now. How much of a book can be a legacy in creating an impact, even just creating something? I think we're missing so much of that creative side of us in the day-to-day world now. How can women start to tap into that creative side and start thinking about the impact that they want to have in this world?
I think it's honoring what you want to do.
Oh, that's a great way to say it. Honor. Give yourself some honor.
Give yourself some honor. And part of honoring means that you're honoring the commitment that you made to yourself at the same time, right? So we know anything gets done through consistency. It's not even, and that's very important in a book. Now, it's important in this aspect too, but what's more important is that you're choosing yourself, right? Sometimes we get bogged down and we say, well, I can't choose myself right now. I have to get dinner on the table. I have to do this. I have to engage.
Time's not right.
I have to do time's not right. My car blew up, whatever the case is. Have to come back to the base of self always. What are we doing for ourselves? How are we honoring ourselves? If part of that has to do with telling your story or has to do with sharing yourself, you are not going to feel satisfied. The second that a book or any sort of writing sinks its hooks into you, you're done for. You're going to be haunted. It is not going to leave you until you do something about it. You can't outrun it. You can't out eat it. You can't out exercise it. You can't out drive it. You can't out anything it. It will find you because it's in those quiet moments when we can't run from ourselves anymore that we go, this is what I truly want. And you're going to have those moments. But what do you do with them? So you have to honor them. You have to make time for them. You have to say, this is a regular part of my life, right?
Yeah.
When I don't do those things, I suffer not just from a business perspective, from a human perspective, because I'm denying myself and I'm giving myself that message. You are denying yourself and you are taking something away from yourself and you're not loving yourself in that moment. So women who feel this, it's okay if you're overwhelmed. It's truly okay if you're overwhelmed. How would you have a frame of reference for what first step to take? It doesn't come from reading a book. It doesn't come from talking to an author. You may get some insight from that, but there's some industry knowledge that you're not going to have because you haven't gone through it. And Jess, you know this because when you do your first book, there's so many questions of, is this right? Am I doing this right? When do I do this? Why does this feel weird? This is weird, right? Am I the only one who's ever done this? Like,
yes, imposter syndrome, as we were talking about before. Very true.
So you need a guide to help you along that path. You need a trusted person where you can go, I'm able to breathe. I'm able to, not think about this. I know this person over here is going to think about this for me. I don't have to think about it right now. But the biggest thing is give yourself that gift. If that's something that you want to do, you can do it. I used to write at night when my kids went to bed. I'd be like, okay, everybody's going to bed.
A little piece of quiet.
Yes. Yes. And I was a single mom at the time. So I'd put them to bed. I would clean the house. I'd do the laundry because I can't do it while they're awake. What's the point of that?
It's a mess.
Right. So I would do that, and then I would find that time to write. And it was a commitment to me. It had only to do with me. Didn't have to do with anybody else. What a fantastic gift to give yourself. Doesn't have to do with how your house looks, or are you raising your kids right, or your in-laws, or your husband, or whatever. It is a gift solely for you. And when you pour into you that way, you're telling yourself, I'm worth it. And so that overflows into other areas of your life.
I think that's a perfect place to end. We could talk forever on this topic, but how can you honor yourself, ladies who are listening, men, women who are listening? How can you honor yourself? Prioritize it, have that accountability. All of that goes into it. And to get your message out, because the world needs to hear it. The world needs to hear your message. Thank you so much, Hilary, for sharing all of this. Where can people find you, go to you to get help when they're ready to get going on that book? Where can they find you?
They can find me at bookmarkpub.com.
Oh, so simple, so easy. Thank you again, Hilary, for being here. We'll have to get you back on because there's more to come with writing your legacy, making an impact, getting your story out there so much. So thank you, Hilary. Thank you, Money Queens, for listening to us. Thank you all for supporting the show, Women Behind the Millions. So first, let's start with a meditation. I would like you to close your eyes. Sit up tall, relax, stretch out anything that needs to be stretched out. Okay. And just breathe. Turn your eyes inward and upward and focus on that little spot in between your eyebrows. Breathe in and out. Deep breath in. Hold it at the top and release it out. Deep breath in. Hold and let it out. And I want you to fully sink into your body. Let it all fall down, sink, Let the earth support you. And I want you to picture a moment in time when you felt courageous, when you knew nothing was going to stand in your way, that no matter what, you were going to succeed. It could be a moment from your past. It can be a moment from your future. What was happening in the moment? How did you feel? Did you feel this calmness? Did you feel at peace? Did you have this excited energy bubbling inside of you, knowing you're about to break through whatever was bothering you, whatever battle you were facing? And I want you to feel how strong you are. That power inside of you has so much strength, but often it goes untapped. There's this strength, this inner strength that's fed right from God, right from the divine into you. It allows you to stand taller. It allows you to pick yourself back up. It allows you to know when it is time to rest. And no matter how tired you are, no matter how weak you feel, no matter what is going on in your life, that strength is always there. There's nothing you need to do to make it stronger. There's nothing you need to do to receive it. It is always there. Now I want you to picture a setback that you are dealing with. And what it feels like, the burden that is on you. And I want you to hold it in your hands and release it up. Release it to the divine and feel all that weight being carried from you. And all the stress, the anxiety, the issues, how it's falling into all areas of your life, all of that is just falling from you, like tiny ants just falling from you to the floor. It's all being released from you because you've now offered it to the divine, and that's all you need to do. And when we release it, we release our ego, our fight or flight mentality. You no longer have to fight, and you no longer have to run. You can stand exactly where you are with your inner strength. You don't have to hide from it anymore. You don't have to worry about it. It is done. And I want you to feel what that feels like. Stay in this feeling as long as you need. And when you're ready, you can come back. And journal, write down the first memory of when you felt courageous. What was that? What was it about that moment? And after you get that out of paper, you can stare at it. And I want you to remember of this strength. I want you to remember how strong you were and are still to this day.